All right, good morning, everyone. We are in North Scottsdale this morning. You guys can't, I've got everybody blurred behind me. We've got a few folks, Jacqueline, you can see other folks right there. Look, she can turn her computer. So welcome this morning from North Scottsdale. We've got people in Paradise Valley, and I know we've got some folks online. I am going to let Jacqueline Baker with Rock Title share her screen here and jump on because I have my lovely slide cover here, which hopefully everybody can see.
Yeah, it says I can't do it.
You can't share?
I cannot start share while the other participant is sharing.
Oh, well, let me stop sharing then. Go right ahead.
All right.
Look, we got people jumping on all over the place. There we go.
Ah,
Can you, okay, I will
Yes, I'm
get rid
going
of
to.
mine. All this fun stuff here.
And if you want to maybe watch the chat.
Yeah, I will, but I'm wondering why my top screen is showing up there. Lovely technology things here, right? So, I will watch the chat, but I'm afraid it's gonna. So quick question to those in PV, are you seeing the chat side? Or are you seeing just her screen? The real estate closing process.
We see the real estate closing process.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
and
We can see the chat, but I think we'll just keep the real estate closing process pulled up here. Right? That's all we need.
that is weird that it's my screen that's duplicating.
Oh, now I see you.
Around.
Yeah. Yep, now I see the real estate. Now I see the Zoom.
Okay, well, I don't know how else to do that one.
Now I see real estate closing process.
I'm just gonna mess with you.
I am puzzled why we've got both of those on there. Well,
we do have the handouts here and we do have art. So
no, that's fine. I was just trying to, I don't know why my screen is the one that's duplicating on there instead of hers. Well, we'll let you get started. I'll see if I can figure this out and we'll go from there.
Okay, perfect. My name is Jacqueline Baker. I am the branch manager escrow officer for our Rock Title Scottsdale location. So hello to everyone here in person and online and there with Art and Lee. Art obviously is also there in Paradise Valley. He is your Paradise Valley escrow officer. We are both always here to help you with anything you need. I always like to start every class with saying, even if you cannot win us in a transaction, we are always here to help you. So if you have a question, always reach out. We want to be part of your team. We want to make sure that we can all be as successful as possible. Melissa has asked us today to kind of go through the second half, the last half of escrow. So if you look here at the closing, the real estate closing process, I like to think of it as the top there that is not in red is basically week 1 to 2 in escrow. And then the bottom half there is week 3 to 4 in escrow. Obviously, if you have a longer escrow, longer than that, but most are typically 30 days. So you think about 4 weeks. So today we're going to go through the bottom box here in red. And we're going to start with the very top box there is Rock Title ensures all contract and title documents are met. What that means is at that point, we have already ordered all of the HOA documents, all of the payoff demands, any liens and judgments that have come up on that title commitment. We've got everything ready to go to get those settlement statements prepared. So at that time, we're going to send you out an email and it's going to read property address, estimated closing statement. This is going to go to the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. We're going to send this to you because we want to make sure that we have received everything in our transaction already. So you'll see the first line here, there are currently no addendums on file. When I tell you that every time I send an email that says there are no addendums on file, there are absolutely addendums on file. It is very rare that an addendum does not exist. It's important that you guys understand we need to receive every single addendum on a file, even if it does not affect a dollar amount, a closing date. It could be something as simple as extending an inspection period, but we have to have every single addendum on file, especially if it's when you get to addendum 3 and it's a seller credit, then I'm always going to need addendums 1 and 2. So always make sure you send us everything up front. The next note is going to be the scheduled closing date. So as you know, our contracts here in Arizona do not have an on or before. It is written specifically to close on a date. If you guys have conversations throughout the inspection period or just throughout the escrow in general that you are wanting to change that closing date, it is imperative that you let us know. We are basing all of our timelines on our payoff good through dates based off of that date. So you want to make sure that we are informed if any of that ever changes. Realty One Group and most brokerages do not like you to write addendums for an on or before closing date. So I know that it is not recommended by your brokers, but even if you did, it's still important that you let us know what that on or before is dependent on. Is it dependent on the seller moving out in time, a repair being done? We're not part of all of that conversation. So you do have to make sure that it is communicated to us as escrow. And then next here, it just says, listing agent, please review the attached, and once approved, we'll schedule the seller's signing. We always want the listing agent's approval. We're not asking you to calculate our fees, to look at our fees to make sure they're correct. We want to make sure, again, we have all of the addendums, we have any repairs for invoices that might have been part of that BINSR period, because we as escrow do not receive the BINSR. Again, we as escrow do not receive the BINSR. Do not send it to us or the lender. Please, please, please.
Okay, the only time that's not true is if it's a cash deal.
Yes.
Then you can send the BINSR.
Yes. Yeah. If it's a cash deal and you're doing some sort of lieu and credit on the BINSR, that is okay when it's cash. If there is a lender, we don't want to see it. Don't send it to us.
Does everybody understand why that is? Does everybody understand that you've already instructed title to share specifically any documents you give to title, they're to share with the lender? So if you give it to title, they have to give it to the lender, even though you go, don't share this with the lender. Sorry, your escrow instructions already tell them to do that.
Yes. And the main reason we don't want to is obviously when a lender sees any kind of repair, that's going to trigger something from them. They're going to want that repair be made prior to closing. It's probably going to mess with your appraisal as well because the appraiser is going to see that. So safest is just don't send us to us. If you want to have a conversation, hypothetically, if a repair wants to be done, call us on the phone. We will verbally talk about it.
Jacqueline always answers her phone, or Kayla, so.
Yes,
there's
we
no
are
reason
always
to reach
available
out.
by phone. And then the next is going to be just the paragraph here to the selling agent. We're sending this about 2 weeks before closing. So at this point, the lender has definitely not gotten us their documents. And that's okay. We know 2 weeks is too soon. So we be sure to list here what we're still waiting on. So in this case, it's the home warranty invoice and of course the lender's documents. So we're disclosing to you here that this is not an accurate breakdown of the buyer's final figures. We make sure to mention this because when you share this, which we don't recommend with your buyer, their dollar amount is going to be thousands of dollars different by the time they see their estimate once the loan documents are in. And that's because at this stage, we don't have any figures from the lender, which is going to be their largest cost as the buyer. We also always list the home warranty because even if the seller is paying a portion of it in the purchase contract, if there is any overage in that invoice, it automatically gets applied to the buyer's side. So that's why we always require to have all of the invoices prior to balancing with the lender, because we're going to that gets paid, and then we would not be in balance with the lender if we didn't have it prior to loan documents. So the next here is an example of the estimate that you'll be sent. So again, this is just about 2 weeks before closing, so not accurate for buyer side whatsoever. So we're going to see here, of course, we have our sales price, our loan amount, and you'll see no other credits are listed up here because I have no addendums at the moment.
Can you make that larger?
Yeah, you want me to do fit to width?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So you'll see no credits here listed. We're not asking you to look over our taxes or our payoffs to make sure that they're correct because we get those directly from the county and the payoff lender. The main thing you're going to want to look at is your commission. Lovely commission. Now, as you see here, I still have commission being paid by the buyer because we received a buyer broker agreement for 3%, but your seller compensation addendum was countered down to 2.5%, let's say. We don't automatically assume that you're not going to get that money. It's your money. You have an agreement for it. So while Realty One Group does not require that you do a buyer broker addendum for that amount, We as Rock Title do require either the buyer broker addendum on the AAR form, or we have a company amendment that is signed by both you as the buyer's agent and the buyer. The reason for that being is that is a legally contractual document that they are going to pay you that amount of money. You have given me written instruction, and for me to not follow said written instruction, I need new instruction.
And just so everybody knows, that document continues after close of escrow. So it lives on. If for some reason they didn't collect it, you could pursue to get that money, which is why they're saying, wait, let's close this hole and make sure there's nothing
Yes.
tagging along later on.
Yes, and it's for your protection as well as your buyers.
Yeah.
So it is for the best to do it. We do understand some people don't like to do it until after the inspection period because then you've amended it and it's easier to go down than to go back up to 3. We do understand, but this is your limit here or your sign here that we still haven't received it, so we're charging it. So this is again a section always to look at. And then next here, we're just going to have the title and escrow charges. Our title and escrow charges are based off of the purchase price and the loan amount. So depending on what those are or what those fees will reflect. And then your miscellaneous is going to be any of the third parties. So HOAs, home warranty, homeowners insurance, repairs, anything through the transaction. So first we want to note here, obviously we have our HOA fees. One misconception is that the HOA addendum is where we get the charges for the HOA. No. We actually order a demand statement from the HOA management company, and that is who tells us what the dues are and what any capital improvements, transfers, anything additional that they are charged. So if your HOA addendum comes in and has a capital improvement at, let's say, $1,000, but the demand comes in at $1,080, we pay the demand, not your addendum. So it's important to make sure and understand those fees are not always accurate on page 1. We always recommend that you call the HOA to get those figures. We do order HOA documents when the escrow is opened, but some HOA management companies can take 10 full business days to get us those documents. So you want to make sure to do that pretty soon once you open the escrow. You'll also see here that we are paying 2 months for the HOA charges to the buyer. That is because most HOAs require that we pay at least 2 months upfront through the transaction. That allows them time to transfer the home into the buyer's name so that they know who our new owner is without being delinquent in fees. Again, you'll see here we have a home warranty, but we have it payable to no one because we don't have that invoice yet. So we only have the $800 per contract that we know of. And then next year, you'll see mobile notary services. And then in big, bold capitals, if required, we only charge mobile notary to the buyer and seller if they actually use it. They can come into any one of our offices across the valley, and it is done as a courtesy. And that is the same for me. So even if your escrow is in Scottsdale, you can sign in our Goodyear office. If your escrow is with Art, you can sign in Chandler. So we all work together as a company. You can sign in any of our branches. But if a mobile notary is used, it is a third-party service. So of course the fee is there. If they do not use it, then this fee gets removed. And then homeowners insurance premium, we just estimate that at $1,500 because again, we don't have the documents yet from the lender. So we don't have that invoice yet. And then we'll go to the next page, and this just fell over from the last one. This is just disclosing that the seller has already paid all of the 2025 property taxes. Where we are right now, we are delinquent with the second half of those property taxes. So you are seeing quite a few because even though the seller's lender has taken the money out of their escrow impound account to pay those taxes, they have not posted yet on the county. So if you look on Maricopa County right now, you'll see there's a lot of pending payments posted or pending payments, but they are not posted, which means we as escrow still have to collect it because part of our title insurance is that we are ensuring they are paid in full.
So how much that? Sorry, I have that happening like today or a closing on Friday.
Yes.
So what will happen?
So every title company is different in what their policy is. So in our sake, if we look on Maricopa, let's say it's Maricopa, and see that it says pending payment, we hold the money in our file until that payment posts. Because otherwise, if we give it to the county, they're going to take about 6 to 8 weeks at most, or at least.
So you
At least.
maybe like, so our closing is Friday, so you can hold it like next week and keep checking and once.
We hold, yeah, until it posts.
Then you.
Could be
send-
next week, it could be a month.
Yeah.
They're
then
gonna
you
hold it.
Send that check, that $500 to the seller.
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah, so if it posts, then we just send it directly back to the seller. So we would hold the money. And again, every title company is different. So I can only speak for us. If we have to hold something, we also have to hold it at 1.5 times that amount because it's going to accrue interest. It already is
Oh.
accruing interest.
Yes.
So they will probably hold it at a higher amount than what is due, because if it doesn't post and it goes into June, a higher amount is now due for those same taxes.
They don't waive the, the interest fee, like it's $6 interest so far.
If the lender paid it, there will be no interest because the
Okay.
lender payment and the
Oh,
county
wow.
just hasn't
That
posted it
dated?
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and this is what happens when payoff lenders do this. Obviously, the second half is due March 1st and then delinquent May 1st. But because those lenders want to hold that interest as long as possible, they send out a bulk wire of thousands of parcel payments on April 30th.
Yeah.
And so the county, of course, takes quite some time for the millions of homes we have here to post them. So it takes about a month and a half to show. And unfortunately, because we have to guarantee it and insure it, we have to see that it posts on the county.
So it's very likely it won't show by Friday. I was thinking any day, it says pending.
Yeah,
It's very likely it's not gonna show. It's very likely.
it's very likely it will not show.
Thank you.
Yes. It's unfortunate, but it is very likely. Okay, and then yes, and then this is just the bottom, so it shows you the due to seller. So based off the figures we have now, and then again, the due from buyer. Again, we do not show this because this is not going to be accurate to the buyer. I would suggest never sharing this to your buyer. This is before we have loan documents. We have no figures from the lender. They're going to see this dollar amount and then want to know why it's all of a sudden 320,000 a week and a half later. So we recommend not sharing this at all. And then that's the closing statement that goes out about 2 weeks before closing. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anybody in PV have any questions? Lee, you should be able to open your mic and we should be able to hear you.
And I talk fast, so I apologize.
I think you're okay.
We're good here.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. All right. And so then at that point, obviously, we're getting the approval from the listing agent. We have now scheduled the seller. We like to try to have the seller sign week and a half, 2 weeks before closing. Not that they need to sign that early, but we like to give them that accessibility to do so. We're not waiting for more documents to come in. That way they can just check something off their list and it's easy and done for them. Okay. And then the next email we're going to get, you're going to be, it's going to be the same email for both, but if you're a buyer's agent, you'll be on the email when it's their signing appointment for a buyer. As a listing agent, you'll be on the email when we send it to the seller. So we send the seller an email every time their appointment's scheduled. We're going to confirm. So you'll know right away they're signing Thursday at 3 p.m. They're signing here in our office. And then we again reiterate what they need to have at that closing appointment. Always a valid photo ID. We cannot notarize someone without a valid photo ID. So an expired driver's license does not work. An expired passport does not work. It must be valid. And then for a seller, we also give them the option, of course, to wire in their funds. So we let them know to have their banking information available. We go over this with them on the phone, in this email, and it's also on the form when they fill out their wiring information. Wiring information is the most important thing that seller is going to give us, because if they give it to us incorrectly, that could mean their wire has gone to the wrong place. So we let them know on the phone, it's not always the information on the bottom of your checkbook. It's not always the bottom of your ACH slip that you have in your checkbook. You need to call your bank and directly get your incoming wire instructions. The main reason for that being is the wire routing number is not always the same as the ACH number, which is at the bottom of your checks, and we don't know that. So we could be going to do the wire the day of closing, and it'll kick it back if it's the wrong routing number. But Chase, for example, has 36 routing numbers. So if we use the wrong routing number for Chase, but your right account number, your wire is not going to end up in the correct location. So you'll want to make sure to check with your bank. It is not just as simple as looking at the bottom. So that's my question. So always have them double check that. Again, we reiterate it. And I also put down here an intermediary bank. So if they're using like a Charles Schwab account or a Edward Jones account, a lot of times they use an intermediary bank, which means we wire to one bank and then that bank wires to another bank. So Charles Schwab, for example, first wires to Chase, and then Chase wires to the final credit of Charles Schwab, and then their final credit to their own account. So you want to make sure, again, that they are getting those instructions. Never, ever, ever have your client email those to you. You should never have that information wired to you. They should never wire it in general. I've had plenty of sellers that then will give it to their listing agent, and the listing agent just forwards it to me. Not secured, no protection. Never. Wire instructions should never be sent across email. We don't send it across email. We have it filled out in person at their closing appointment for this reason. Hackers make it their entire job to look in and dig into this and steal this kind of information. So we want to make sure we're doing it all in person. If we get an email, a week after their signing appointment from the seller that says like, oh, we want to change our wiring information. No, not an option. So at that point, anytime we get an email like that, we don't respond to it. We pick up the phone, we call the seller, we let them know, hey, we received this email. We want to let you know, is this legitimate? Is it you? And sometimes it is. And then we have to go through a whole verification process with their social, their account information. It's not something we just take over the phone. It has to be done in person or through a secure portal.
Well, and another point is if you have a seller that is a trust, the funds need to go to a trust account. So if they do not have a trust bank account, they better go open one.
Yes.
Because they cannot go to their personal accounts.
No. And same with LLCs. So
Right.
however they're holding title is how the proceeds need to be payable to. And we very often do see that like people don't have accounts set up in their trust yet. So we do always let them know that as well. That's how it has to be payable. Anytime you're working in a state situation, if someone passed away, it has to go to the estate account. You have to make sure you have everything lined up. So whoever you are in title is however that proceeds check is payable to. Okay. So that's the signing appointment email. And then this is example 2 of the closing statement. So this is now when loan documents are in, this is going to be accurate figures now for the buyer. So we'll see it's the same property, same price. And look, oh, there was an addendum for a seller credit that we didn't have. So we have now added that in. So you can see that up here. Seller credits are always going to be listed up here. If you're giving an agent credit to your buyer or your seller, that will also be listed here at the top of the closing statement. And then again, you'll see our prorations for taxes and insurance. Taxes and HOAs. And then you'll see all of our loan charges in here have now been input. This lender, thank goodness, was just so cheap. They didn't have any charges. And then we still have the payoff. And then you see now we received that buyer broker addendum. So we have removed the commission payable by the buyer. So in this case, obviously, it's going to be less that the buyer has to bring in because we didn't have the correct documentation. And then you'll see here now we have our total endorsements. It's no longer an estimate. We know it is 300 because of what the lender has requested. And then again, now you'll see that home warranty. We have that invoice finally. So that is now there's an additional $10 that's on the buyer side because that's how it came in. We do see some agents that want to cover a difference, which is absolutely something you guys can do. It just has to make sure it's on your CDI as a credit to the buyer. And then again, in this case, they did use both mobile notaries. And then we ended up getting the insurance premium for State Farm at $1,602. So it came in, higher than the estimate we had in the file. So you'll see now due from buyer is actually $308 because we removed the additional compensation and added in that seller credit that we did not have that documentation for. So again, at this point, we're going to let you know docs are in. We've reached out to the buyer. Either the buyer scheduled their appointment or we've left them a voicemail, but that way immediately the docs are in. Sometimes buyers, we don't have that relationship with buyers that you guys have. So when they get a call from us, they're not very urgent to call us back sometimes, depending on how quickly it is before the closing date. So we always let you guys know that we've left them a voicemail because that way if you want to shoot them a text on the side, be like, hey, make sure you call them back. This is important. That way you guys know exactly what's going on. And both sides of the transaction, no listing agent and selling agent will be aware that we've reached out to the buyer.
Well, and it's really important to know that title is not going to schedule that appointment until they have docs. Because they've got to receive the docs and then balance, which, that only takes like 15 minutes, right?
Yes. So, and I wish it did. And some lenders do. So yeah, we get a lot of times where, the agents will call or the buyers will call and they want to schedule their signing. And unfortunately, we can't schedule anything until those loan docs are in and balanced, but for multiple reasons. One, we as the escrow and title company are kept pretty in the dark with the loan process. You guys get LSUs, hopefully weekly, from the lender, but we as title do not always receive them. So we don't even know when the closing disclosure went out. Has it been signed? When is there 3 days up? So if we make an appointment and then the lender's like, oh, the CD didn't go out in time, they actually can't sign for another 2 days, then I have an angry buyer because I set an appointment and I was unprepared.
Okay, let's stop for just a second. How many of you understand what a CD is? I'm not talking a certificate of deposit, not talking a playable tune little disc, right?
Closing disclosure.
Yes.
Closing
I don't know,
disclosures.
but I can tell you more than that.
Okay,
Okay.
but see, that's important because honestly, realtors do not get notified of when the CD goes out either.
Yeah.
So back when we had changes about 6 years ago.
The CFPB ones?
Yeah.
2015.
Oh my God. years ago. So at any rate, when that changed, that CD requirement that there's a 3-day delay. There's a 3-day, it's called a right of rescission,
Mhm.
but it's not, they really don't, they can cancel the loan, they can't cancel the contract.
Yes.
So we don't typically refer to it as a right of rescission because it's not on our documents.
Yeah.
But that's happening in the background, folks.
Yeah.
We as realtors don't get that information from the lender, but title has to wait for that. The buyer cannot sign until at least 3 days after that CD goes out.
Yes.
And so, yeah, when they're saying, oh, we want to schedule, title doesn't even know when they can sign
Mhm.
until they see that whole loan package come through. And sometimes they'll say, oops, the CD went out yesterday. We're supposed to close tomorrow. Yeah, that's not happening. Right?
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit more about what is it when somebody says funding versus closing, and what are the delays with that?
Yes. Okay. So that's more kind
Is
of
it further on?
a little bit. No, it's okay.
Alright, just quick question.
Yeah.
Is that for every loan? VA, FHA?
Every loan has a certificate, yes.
So not every loan.
Oh, okay. See, I learned something too.
Not every loan. There are certain, so any hard money loans, if you have like an investor,
Yeah.
they do not have closing disclosures, and reverse mortgages do not have closing disclosures. So those are your main two, the most two frequent that you'll see.
Right of rescission loans.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah. Hard money loans, they hardly look at anything. You just they get a title commitment and then we get docs like 30 minutes later. So they're the very easy ones. But reverse mortgages are still on the old HUD. So they're on the old school process, which is very, very rare these days, HUDs. Oh, that's printer. But as far as the actual process goes, so we've got docs in, and of course, it would be great if we had them, per the contract, docs are supposed to be in, buyers supposed to sign 3 days before closing. That is incredibly rare. It is very rare that it is done 3 days before closing. It is more likely it is the night before or the morning of. Now, we as title, of course, don't love that. Then that rushes everybody from our side to the buyers. So when a lender asks us when a buyer wants to sign, we always tell them as soon as possible, because then it gives the buyer time to not have to rush out of work, cancel any kind of meetings they have. But if they have to sign on the morning of, they have to sign first thing. So we're talking like an 8:30 a.m. appointment in our office. They have to rush to sign, rush to wire their money, then get it to the lender. It's not a good process for anybody. The buyer doesn't love it. They're not excited. They're rushed. They're just feeling too overwhelmed with anything. So we always try to give them as much time as possible, but it's always up to the lender. It's outside of our control and even outside of your control as the agents. So typically what will happen is, let's say it's a good lender and they signed the day before closing. So then once the buyer signs, it's still not over. So the buyer signs with the notary or in our office, however they choose. The documents come back to us as the title company. We scan everything into our computer, make sure everything is signed correctly on our end. We scan it over to the lender reviews it, make sure they clear all of their conditions, a verification of employment, anything they might still have on their side. They also make sure all the documents are signed correctly, and then they have to issue funding authorization and get us their wire. So typically what will happen is, let's say they cleared everything then the morning of closing. We're at like 11 a.m. now because they signed in the morning. We just got funding authorization. And your loan officer is going to shoot out an email to the entire chain of everybody, the sellers, the listing agents, the buyer's agents, and they're going to tell you, we funded, we're done, congratulations, you own the home. No, you don't. You don't own the home. And I respond to every single one of those emails. No, I'm sorry, you don't own the home. So what that means is they have funded, they've agreed to fund, they've met all their conditions, and they have initiated the wire. That is hours away from being done. So at that point, when they initiate the wire, that could mean a couple different things depending on the lender. It means they've requested it from their accounting department, and then it still has to go through 2 people's approval process. A lot of lenders will also have what's called batch wires, which means even if they approve it at 11 a.m., their next batch wires might not go out until 1 p.m. So they won't even send the wire for still another 2 hours. Wires are also not instant. So while some banks are, Wells Fargo to our bank tends to be pretty instant. That's just what we've noticed from our side. But it isn't always instant. They can also take a couple hours to go through the Federal Reserve and then hit our account. So just because the wire has been initiated, we are still very far away from being actually recorded. So let's say that batch wire goes out at 1 p.m. We receive it at 1:45. We release it for recording. Depending on the county, every county takes a little bit different in time for recording, but it is all done electronically. So we use the same platform for every single type of recording. Maricopa, depending on the day, the time, it can be 30 minutes, it can be 3 hours. If you're recording on a Friday afternoon, expect a longer time. A Friday afternoon on a holiday, you're going 3-4 hours probably. It's a 3-day weekend, like Memorial Day, this Friday, because it's also towards month end, probably going to be a long time. If you're doing a Gila County, a Mojave County, we just had a Gila last week, 5.5 hours for recording. It was a cash deal, 1 deed to record, 5.5 hours. So you always have to make sure. So when your buyer says, oh, I got my moving truck, will be in the driveway at 10 a.m. No, I would not expect anything before an early afternoon to mid-afternoon recording confirmation.
Because what's happening on the other side? From the county, like you're doing your little portal, please
Mhm.
record this. And then like, what are they?
I wish I
What are
could
they
tell you what
doing?
they're doing that's taking that long.
Well, think about it. It's not
There's
just
like
our
a line,
stuff.
right, there's a line
Yeah.
of, there's a line of
Right.
Yes.
transactions that they have to go through, but then are they just like, okay.
So
that's
Maricopa
awesome.
is incredibly busy. I mean, when we had the top, like when it was, gosh, when was it? Probably last month end, we released a file at like 9:18 in the morning. So still pretty early,
Yeah.
like, 48 minutes into a work day.
Yeah.
And we were 264th in line.
Oh, it tells you that.
And it tells you.
Right.
So it's not, so if someone's there also in person recording at the county, I of course can't see that, but we use a software called Simplifile, and we can see everyone that uses Simplifile, how many in line were for that. I can't tell what other companies or what the other files are, but I can just tell there's blank numbers in front of us.
Well, and remember, you have refis going through, you have all sorts of other documents that are recording. So when she talks about end of month, so think about end of month and end of quarter. Refis
Mhm.
often go end of month and definitely end of quarter, all that stuff spikes.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, it could be like someone's recording a plat map. It doesn't have to be necessarily transactions that are
Yeah, that
recorded.
was my question, is it just a transaction?
It's any recorded
Recorded
document.
anything
No,
recorded.
it's just.
It's anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it can be a lot. And Gila, it's a smaller county. I don't think they work full days.
Oh.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because you can see, again, we'll be in line. We were third in line for 4 hours. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna work there. And there are also certain counties
They're
that close
closed.
earlier in the day. So that's something that, we'll let you know too. Again, Maricopa is here till 5, so we're good there, but Mojave, you cannot release for recording after 4 p.m. So let's say it's one of those where the wires take too long, or we're waiting for a walkthrough to come in, and we don't release it until 4:05, it will not record until the next day.
But the county will stay there after 4 o'clock till as long as it takes for everybody in line. to get
So that's
through.
why you can't release after 4. So anything
Right.
released 4/4, they will take care of, but after 4, it's next day.
They'll stay until 7 o'clock if they have to.
Okay, so typically if they're signing at like 9 in the morning,
Mhm.
they can still close or record that day?
Yes.
That's typically, okay.
Typically, yeah. I mean, again, it's not what we like to do, but because of lenders and how long they take, that is what the typical process is. So typically they are taking off that morning, coming in for signing, going right to the bank to wire, and then we're waiting for all that to come in and still closing. To me, that I just always say, you can do that. That's not a problem. It just pushes back your recording confirmation. So you have a buyer that needs to get into the property that, has their moving truck scheduled for 10 a.m., signing at 9 a.m., that property isn't going to be theirs for hours.
Right,
So kind of depending on what their
it
process.
could be the same day.
Yeah, oh yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah, very common that it's same day.
Cause they just have to have it recorded.
Yes, yeah. And then at that point, it's also to know that when we actually have the recording confirmation is when we can disperse the file. So depending on the time of year, because we don't do daylight savings time, our wire cutoff does change. So right now, anything that's recorded prior to 2:30 p.m., we can wire out the same day. If it's recorded after that, the wire has to go out the next business morning. So let's say it's this Friday and it records at 3 o'clock. The seller is not getting that wire until Tuesday because of the holiday. So, and we do let them know, we let you guys know as agents, and we also do let the seller know when their wire is going out. We make sure to call them.
Is it still best to not close on a Friday? I've always heard that because of like fraud and stuff.
I know that, and yeah, brokers always say that. To me, I don't, there's no difference on my side. But yes, if something goes out and it's wrong, you got 2 dead days.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then on the day of closing, so we kind of went through that a little bit, but on the morning of closing, you're going to receive this first email here, and it's closing update. Okay. So I'm just gonna let you know, just a quick update. Signed loan documents were scanned over to the lender for their review. Buyer's funds are already in. Seller's documents are already signed. We'll update you again once the lender's wire is in and they have authorized funding and recording. So we send this basically right when we get in the morning so that you know the status. Of course, if something is different, if it's buyers are signing at 9 a.m., buyers are signing at 10, we'll, reiterate that here, just specific to the transaction. And then we'll send a closing confirmation email. So as soon as we're recorded, we send you over an email. Congratulations, we're recorded. We attach the final closing statement so that you have that automatically for your record. So you have that as soon as we're recorded. Closing statement is in your email. We also call you, of course, if you do not respond to the email. But if you respond to the email saying thank you, honestly, I don't call as well because you've already acknowledged it and you're busy. But if you don't respond to the email, we do always call as well because we know you guys as agents, you're not like us. You're not sitting at your desk in front of your computer all day. So we always want to make sure we get you on the phone because someone is probably trying to move in and move out. We want to make sure you know as soon as possible. We also send a same closing confirmation email to your clients. So depending on what side you're representing, we will also CC you if it's for, your buyer or your seller. So this one is for the buyer. So we just say, congratulations, we're thankful to be part of your purchase. We let them know in the mail they're going to be receiving a copy of the final closing statement and original recorded warranty deed. But we also attach digital copies here. So this is, again, a perfect example. If it's a Friday, if it's a holiday weekend, a lot of times they'll need that warranty deed, that recorded warranty deed to gain access to the gate of the community or the HOA. So we give that to them right up front as a digital copy so that they have that if they need to set anything up or anyone requires that. So they have it in their email. And again, you are CC'd as the buyer's agent. So you have it as well if you want to save that in your files. And then next for the seller, we send them again the same closing confirmation email and attach the closing statement here. We do not attach the 1099 to this email because that has their social security numbers and would need to be sent securely, and they're not going to open it likely if it's securely. So we like to send just the closing statement at closing, and then that way you guys as the listing agent would also be included on that as well. They do always receive copies in the mail, but again, in today's day and age, most people do keep things digitally, especially if you need them right away. So we like to do it both ways for the client. If a client obviously has told us not to email them anything in the transaction, clearly we do not. We also have some agents that don't like us to send this email because we send it directly at recording and they want to make sure to talk to their client first. So if you let us know that, we will not send it until you let us know. Yes.
No, I just forgot it. I'll think about it.
It'll come back.
Oh, I know. Okay, so with the settlement statement, is that typically what you get every single time? Because this is now like my third closing. It's the first time I got a settlement statement, I swear.
Like at all through the whole transaction?
I mean, like the last two other closings, I do not remember them saying like, "Hey, go over the settlement statement." It wasn't until this one that I did. So is that typical or not typical?
I would say it's not typical, but every escrow officer does things their own way.
Okay.
I would say that that's a huge disservice to not send it.
Yeah.
Because again, we aren't part of so many of your guys' conversations. So without sending it to you for review and approval, we could be missing something huge.
I
So
didn't, because I had to use the title that the seller was doing because it was like a reload and stuff like that.
yeah,
So if you're not as experienced with closings, I would say you should be asking title if they aren't getting it to you about 2 weeks out. Hey, can I see an estimated
Yeah.
settlement sheet?
Because this time I got one, I was like, oh, this is very helpful because it really, you could check your commission.
yes, because
Correct.
that's how you're getting paid. That's
Yeah.
very important. It's not the
Well,
most important
especially with
part.
this one, because it was like, there was a 0.5% left on the table that I had to discuss with the buyer, so that was on the debit side, cause at
Yes.
first I was like, this is not right, and I was like, oh, it's on the debit side.
Yeah.
But I had not really reviewed a settlement statement to like know that, so.
Yes.
Good to know.
Yeah, they should
Yeah.
always be sent out, but again, every escrow officer is different. So to me, it's the only way to do it. Again, it's just as much for me as it is for you guys, for me to send it. So they should be sending it, in my opinion. And then, yeah, so after this, now we're recorded, everything's gone out in the mail. So your checks are being couriered to the office or wired, whichever you guys have, instructed us on your CDI. We send those packages to the buyer, seller, and the lender. We also include in every buyer's package, depending on the county they're in, there is a title alert that they can sign up for. It's free with the county. So whatever county they purchased in, they can log on to the county, sign up their name with their property address to be alerted if anything is ever reported against that property. It is free of charge to them and to anybody. So even if you guys as agents wanted to sign up to monitor your properties for your clients, you could do that as well. It comes over as an email if anything is recorded, but we just send them a little flyer letting them know they can sign up for it. So they'll get that in the mail as well.
What do you call that?
Title Alert. So if you want, yeah, like Maricopa Title Alert is what it is on their website. And again, free of charge, but they have it in every county. I know for a fact, Arizona and Nevada. I don't know about all the other
Great things
things.
they should be doing. it,
Yeah, and
especially
again, it's free.
with all the title fraud out there. I mean, it's after the fact, but
Yes.
yeah.
And yeah, and we have a flyer obviously for Rock Title, which you can get with Kimmy if you guys would like to have branded for yourself.
Yes.
She can brand it with your marketing, doesn't have to be lime green, but we can brand it to your colors and your team. Yeah.
Unrockified.
Yes. But yeah, it's a good thing for you guys to give your clients as well. Again, we put it in a package, but it's another service that you can, and again, it's free. So why would they not want to sign up for that? Any questions?
That's just any title, right? Like that's just like put on through the.
Yes, any
Yes.
title. Yeah, because it's with the county, so it has nothing to do with. So even like I did, I bought my home 6 years ago. I signed up, a couple months ago. So it doesn't have to be like you just bought. It can be anything.
Fraud is rampant.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So
Figure out.
okay, well, I think that's my whole spiel.
Oh, we've got questions here. I've got questions.
Okay.
So let's say you are the buyer's agent and you find out your buyer has a co-signer. And the co-signer's out of town. We're 2 weeks out from closing. And do you need to have a conversation with title about that?
Yes, you do.
Why?
So even if they're, because again, you probably will have talked about this with the lender, with the loan officer. One thing also, love loan officers, okay? They are a very imperative part to our business. I don't speak to a loan officer the entire transaction. I never know who your loan officer is on any transaction unless they've signed a pre-qual. Otherwise, we don't speak to them at all. They have a processor. That's who asks us for all of the documents, the whole transaction. And then we work with the closer, and that's who actually prepares the closing documents.
Wait, let me ask you a question. Does the real estate agent ever talk to the processor or the closer?
No,
Oh, isn't that
none
fun?
of us are talking to the same people.
Isn't that fun?
So if you have a conversation with the loan officer about there being a cosigner and, oh, do I need to add them to the contract? No, they're not on title. They're just going to be a cosigner. No problem. That matters to me because when they send us the loan documents, I show up and all of a sudden there's a Corey Smith and I'm like, who's that? I have no clue who that is. And he lives in New York. We recently had a transaction. It wasn't recent, actually. I would say recent. It was like 8 months ago. But we had a transaction with an agent out of Scottsdale. She went under contract as cash and then halfway through changed to a loan. Everyone agreed to it. It was fine. And then she had a co-signer on her loan who was in New York. And he was like, I'm going to the Hamptons. So I can't sign for at least a week and a half. And the seller canceled on her and she lost her earnest money. So we weren't involved in any of these conversations. We had no idea who he was. Yes.
I was gonna say that literally happened with my buyer. She went back to Washington and her husband was here. She's like, oh, I was just doing some stuff back in Washington. It was the day of closing. And
Yeah.
I was like, what? She was supposed to sign at 8 a.m. So we had to cure it and like
Mhm.
push it back so we can get a notary out there. So
Yes.
talk to your clients too, because sometimes they think they can just.
Yeah,
Digital stuff.
they don't understand. And we have like in our portal that we use a software called Qualia. We have a connection or connect is what it's called. And they log in and they fill out their personal information. And it does also ask them about travel dates. So we do ask them up front if they are traveling. But of course, things change. You might need to go on a business trip out of nowhere. Again, that communication to us is huge because we can have possibly a power of attorney executed so that the husband can sign while the wife is back in Washington, or she can just go back a day later. We can have those conversations prior to. We also just had a transaction last week. The parents are buying the home for the daughter who just got to ASU. He was flying back. They got to sign the night before so that we didn't have any delay in closing. But they hadn't told the lender, they hadn't told us that they weren't going to be here through the whole process at all. So it's important that that's communicated always.
So what happens with that? And you've got somebody out of state signing and somebody here signing, but we're closing in 2 days. How does that work?
We have to rely on FedEx, which is the least likable option. Lenders do not allow buyers to sign counterpart, which means they have to sign the exact same set of documents. So it's not like we could have buyer Washington sign and buyer here sign and match them up together. So we have to send the documents out to Washington for the wife to sign. She has a sign. We have to hope that she can sign early enough that that notary can make FedEx to then get the documents back to us for the husband to come into our office to sign the next day. So you're counting on a lot. And again, FedEx, while it is great, they have storms. Every package for FedEx has to fly through Memphis. Now, why they chose Memphis, that has the worst weather sometimes, I don't know. But we have had plenty of times when packages have gotten delayed and haven't made it exactly on schedule because it had to go through Memphis.
So you couldn't have just sent a mobile person to.
We can still send the mobile person to Washington, but then it still has to make sure to come back for the person to sign here in time.
So that's why I'm bringing this up. People think, well, yeah, you can just sign it electronically there. It'll just be faxed over. No, it doesn't work that way. The actual hard copy has to come back so that the other person here can sign those same documents. And remember, if you're closing that day, she talked about how critically important it is if they're signing that morning. They have to sign that very first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
Well, you're waiting on FedEx to get here at 10 a.m. and hope it's on that 10 a.m. delivery. Otherwise, you're pushing, right? And sometimes lenders won't actually fund
Mhm.
until they've received those fully signed documents back. So, does anybody know what Arizona's funding cutoff time is?
Noon, 2, I think.
Well, I mean, so it depends on the time of year because again, we don't do daylight savings time. So
Correct.
sometimes our cutoff will be 2:45, sometimes it'll be 3:45. But that's just what my cutoff is as far as to send wires. Some lenders have cutoffs at noon, at 1 p.m. So depending on what each lender's requirement is, especially when we're working with out-of-state lenders, it's not always the same across the board. So some lenders, even if their lump sum their wire cutoff is 2 p.m., their review document cutoff could be 11 a.m. So even though, and here's the thing, at that point, you usually can sweet talk them, they'll push it through, you'll talk to your loan officer will talk to their boss, and you'll be able to maybe push one through on a review. But a wire is a hard cutoff, it's the Federal Reserve, so there's no pushing a wire cutoff. Everyone's is set in stone.
Right. What about doing the RON, the remote online notary?
So RON, which is remote online notary, it's kind of like a Zoom call but with a notary, is an option except for most lenders still do not allow it.
Oh, they do.
No.
Well, but the RON still is the signing portion, it's not the funding portion. And I think that's what most
That was better.
agents don't understand is there are multiple pieces here that I've just talked about that are gonna throw a wrench in this. And again, you're talking to the loan officer and the loan officer's like, yeah, we're all good, we're done, we've got everything taken care of. It's like, they don't even know.
No.
They're not a part of that. They're neither the processor nor the closer. They don't even realize some cosigner may be out of state, right? And you're trying to juggle this because you're getting a call from title saying, hey, wait a minute, where is this Corey person? And you're like, Corey, well, they were in Scottsdale. Well, they're not in Scottsdale
Yeah.
anymore. Like, and all of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh, how do we get this deal closed? So those are questions you need to ask up front. As she said, they have a system that asks for travel plans. But really, as you're going into your last week, you need to be asking your buyers and sellers, if the
Yeah.
sellers haven't signed, where is everybody for this last week? Is everybody here and ready to be able to sign? Oh, no, Corey went to Washington. She'll be fine. She'll be back
Yeah.
after we close. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, and especially if it's a cosigner we don't know about, then I don't know their travel plans because I don't know they exist. So they didn't fill out our software to let us know that. So it's a huge thing. Yeah, and sometimes they don't think about it. This isn't something they do often or at all. It could be their first time or they haven't done it in 20 plus years. So it's not something that they think about because in today's day and age, everything is so easy electronically. They don't understand that our business is still very old school in that way that lenders are still requiring wet signatures on their documents. Now we scan them to them and then they have us shred them. So it is so pointless. It hurts, but it's where we are right now.
I
Still.
think it'll ever change.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. There are some lenders that are finally starting to do remote online. United Wholesale Mortgage can do it. They can use a software called Proof. That's very easy. I love it. But you also still have those people that don't want to do anything online. So like my mom doesn't even have an email address still to this day. She doesn't understand. She calls it the big blue E for the internet. She does not know what it is. So, there are still people that don't want to do anything online, and that's fine too. Same with our software. We have everything set up to make it easy and seamless, but if they aren't comfortable using our software or putting anything on the internet, we obviously work with them in other ways as well. So it's not like it's a requirement that they have to use our software.
So question is in Arizona, is everything, every page, does it need to be wet signed or are there certain pages that can be docu-signed and like 3 things that have to be like physically signed?
Yeah, there are some lenders that will do what's called a hybrid closing.
Yeah.
So they'll do like half of the package has to be signed in person and then half has to be done e-sign. So Fairway does hybrid on almost all of their transactions. Epic, I've never had them do a hybrid. Epic Lending, they always do all hard sign, so the whole package is about 120, 130 pages. But some lenders will do a hybrid, so they get, you know, both. But I mean, if I was a buyer, if I have to sign anything, I'll just sign it all. I'm there. I just would prefer that. But it, you know, that's also a conversation they're having with their loan officer. Do they want a hybrid closing? Do they want a full wet sign? They're having that conversation, you know, outside of all of us. They're having that directly with their lender.
Any questions out of Paradise Valley or online? I am watching the chat if people want to put something in. Lee, anybody there have any questions?
Paradise Valley is all good.
I bet you've been having side conversations over there. Thanks, Art.
Yeah, I was like, he's answering the questions
He
then.
is. Any other questions here? I'll throw one more out. We've got a few more minutes. So, you mentioned something about adding a buyer, right? And that, you might not be aware of it. What I see more as a managing broker is that I get something across my desk that says title said just to add their names. I'm like, to what? Like, if you're adding names to a contract, you can't just write, you know, Sarah Smith and John have been added as co-borrowers. Because there's a whole contract in there. So what happens? They have 6 years under contract law to file a lawsuit. So if they're not agreeing to the terms of that contract and you've had inspections, you've agreed to things, you're just adding them and then you're opening this door for potential lawsuits. They come back, well, I never agreed that that was okay. Really, folks? You can't do that, right? They have to agree to all the terms and conditions of what's already been documented, because otherwise you really are opening yourselves up for something further. And we don't even know what that could be. So please talk to your broker. Do not, you know, Rock Title does not say this, but I often get, well, that's what Title said, just add their names. And they do an addendum, literally says, you know, Corey Smith has been added as a co-borrower. Like, no, right? So please talk to your brokers, make sure you get the language. We have it, that language, how to add them and say they're agreeing to all the terms and conditions. They've received a copy of all of it. And hopefully you as an agent actually have a copy of the email where you sent them the entire document. Because otherwise, guess what? If they come back and complain, who's it going to be on? Oh yeah, they never gave that to us. That's on you. Right? You didn't provide the contract document that they're agreeing to. So please, please take that step very carefully. We're trying to protect you and your clients literally for years to come, because it's 6 years that they can file lawsuits. Okay. So please do that. I think the other, in terms of timing, we've discussed most of them. Any other timing things that would be critical at the last minute that have been curveballs for closings for you?
Like,
I mean, cash is easy usually,
Cash is
and
easy.
I've closed cash within 24 hours was well, 36 hours was the fastest I've ever
yeah,
closed.
cashes are very easy. Never a problem there. Well, I shouldn't say never, obviously, depending on what's on the title commitment. But timeline wise, that's usually not a big one. We've recently had where people, it's sellers, you know, they own the home, husband and wife, community property right of survivorship. And then they've spoken with their tax accountant and is like, oh, you know what, before you sell, you actually should transfer that into your trust. And then they won't tell us, they won't tell their agent. So then once we're actually released for recording, so day of closing, everyone's signed, everything's done, we're uploaded to the county, money is in, title does what's called the date down to make sure there's nothing new recorded against our property. And they'll pull and see, oh, sellers are now in their trust, so all of your documents are wrong. So then we have to call the seller and hope they're local, hope that they weren't someone that signed out of the state or even in Rio Verde. I mean, we got to hope that they're local enough to get down to our office to now sign new executed documents. So the biggest thing is anything that is being recorded through escrow, we have to know about. So, but again, it just depends. Did your seller let you know as the agent? Sometimes they just talk to their tax accountant and no one ever thinks about the dominoes that are going to fall into place by doing that. So we've had that happen twice now. So I'd say that's common enough. But it's something, again, we can't look out for that unless we're told about it. So we also have one right now where the seller is being sued and there may or may not be a lien prior to closing. If you put us on notice of something, that is as good as gold to us. You have now put us on notice. We have to ensure that is correct because again, we are insuring the title. So if I know there's now this pending lien, I have to wait for that to be done before we can close escrow.
Because if they're putting in their trust, they have to sign it a completely different way, right? Like a
Yes.
Trust.
Yeah, they have to try a trust certificate. Their deed is now incorrect, so they would have to re-sign. And again, hopefully they're local, and if not, we would have to send another mobile notary, which would go, of course, then also be additional money. So it would charge them extra.
Does the buyer have to re-sign everything too?
No, buyer wouldn't have to re-sign.
Sometimes the seller will charge you too, like if you have to like change things, like that's what happened, like there was like a fee that you could incur for like not closing on time or not having.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people do write that in. You know, we've seen that plenty of times when a seller will agree to extend close of escrow for a per diem penalty of X dollars per day.
Yeah.
So we've seen that a lot too. And again, we'll follow any of your written instructions. I know another one. Post possessions. If you agree to do a post possession, it's actually my title tip today, so I don't know why I didn't think about that first. We need to know about post possessions as soon as they're available. So sometimes they'll be in the contract and it will state, post possession agreement to be executed during inspection period. And that's a whole other Melissa issue. But it's important that we are always provided the post possession. One, if you want it ran through escrow, we need to know that immediately so that it's on the actual estimate, so that we're collecting the money correctly. Also, because your lender might not allow it. Lenders do not always allow post possessions to be handled through the transaction. So that way we want to make sure we're letting you know, as well as the lender's letting you know if they have an issue with it so that you can handle that outside.
Well, key point with lenders, if there's a loan involved, if the buyer is moving in as an owner occupant, does anybody know how many days they're allowed before they have to take possession personally? Does anybody know? 60 days. They must be in possession personally within 60 days if it's an owner occupant thing. So I would be counting 59, just to be clear. But it does mean that you cannot do a post possession for 75 days. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
So it's called loan fraud. Their loan documents say they are taking possession within that 60 days. So again, really, really important. The reason I was shaking my head was when somebody writes a contract and says, oh, and by the way, we're going to agree to something down the line. What happens if they don't agree? Who's answering that?
Yeah.
I have a question about that specifically, because I'm closing with a transaction, but this realtor actually asked me what I thought about this, because in situations where they need a new roof and the roofer says, okay, we'll do it at you can pay at closing or whatever. But like, how does that work? Because like with this situation, I guess she was saying that the agent was like, they'll do it all after, but then they were saying that it became an issue because the lender is lending on something that already has a good roof. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so they're saying like, no, it needs to be done prior to that, because what they were worried about is if we close and everything, and then now the roof doesn't get done or whatever. She was just saying there was like issues there. So, and I've heard of them where they'll say, yes, you can pay for it after, but like, how do you work that situation if?
Okay, so there are a couple of ways to handle that, and it's happening more and more. So many roofs are needing to be replaced. So a couple of things. If there's a loan in place, if you're going to do something called an escrow holdback, and you're going to present this to where the lender knows that there's money being held out. Again, they see that closing statement, right? If it comes onto the buyer's side that there's money being held back for that repair, then the lender has to approve it. And as Jacqueline said, they have to hold at least 1.5 times the amount. Okay. Because if anybody's seen a roofing estimate, it says, here's the cost plus all the wood that must be replaced at $100 a sheet, unknown amount, right? And it says it very clearly there. They don't know how much the wood is going to cost.
Yeah.
So that's on there, and that's why they have to hold more. Now, the other way you can do it is the seller can either repair the roof prior to close and pay at close of escrow. sellers can always, well, so can buyers, but sellers can always issue what's called seller instructions to title. So let's say they want the roof paid for. They can send an invoice to title, and this is a different document. We are not creating this. The seller is sending instructions to title saying, Jacqueline, would you please pay this invoice to ABC Roofing at close of escrow? The roof is complete. Now, the other way that can work is the seller can order the roof. They can send the invoice to title and say, I'm paying for this. And they're going to have to include additional money, right? Because you don't know those costs. But sometimes it's easier. Let's say it's a pool pump, right? Pool pump that needs to be installed after close of escrow for some reason. They can send a note and say, we're paying for the pool pump. Here's the invoice, pay this. If you guys didn't know, sellers can pay credit card bills. They can pay all sorts of things and might have to for the other purchase that they're doing. So, but that can be done. So if the seller is paying for, say, the roof that's going to be done after close, but they have worked out what those costs are going to be, and the order has already been put into the roof, or the tiles have been ordered, the seller's done that order, they can do that and have that check waiting at title at closing to go to the buyer.
Yes.
For the buyer to release. But again, you have to have that number. It can't be the 1.5 times. They have to know that solid number, which is hard on roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But say there's a sewer line being fixed, right? That's usually a concrete number, so to speak. Here, this is the amount we know this is being fixed. That can be ordered and paid. That on the settlement statement is all on the seller's side. Lender doesn't care about it. It's not on the buyer's side.
Good.
They care what's on the buyer's side. They don't even know that the roof isn't done. They see the line item that says seller paying ABC Roofing. They don't
It's
care.
what she was worried about, was I guess the person was like, well, they don't wanna pay for the roof and everything, and then they pull out. And that, but what she was trying to explain is, well, if you need a new roof, you're gonna
You need-
need a
yeah,
new
the roof
no
is-
matter who's buying it. So like, it's not really not like a useless charge.
Yeah.
Because either way, you're probably gonna have to do that, whoever's buying it.
Yeah, we get that quite often, and we end up paying those through escrow because they don't want to out of their own pocket, or like, oh, I'll just wait for my proceeds.
Right.
So it's certainly not a problem. There sometimes is also additional documentation we'll need depending on the type of repair and the dollar amount. Sometimes we'll need like mechanic lien waivers, and we'll need the contractor to sign something. But we'll always let you guys know if when an invoice comes in, if there is additional things needed.
Any other questions from anybody? It looks pretty quiet online. Anybody else here? Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
This
Of
was
course.
great. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks everybody in PD for hanging in with us. Hope that went well.
So close.
Oh, you're sharing your screen. There you go.
Yes, thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Lee. Bye, everybody.